This morning. All right, it is day 2. It's our second day together. So thank you for bringing the energy back into the room this morning. We're going to need it to sustain us through all of the wonderful things we have to go through together today. I'm Jory Hadsel. I serve as Vice Chancellor and CTO type, facilitating collaboration between Foothill-De-Anza and the State Chancellor's office. So, as our technology evolves, so do our roles. And right now, I kind of feel like I'm living proof that sometimes your job description needs to be updated in real time. So I'm hoping AI can help me with that. So again, thank you for being here. I wanted to go over just a couple of housekeeping items real quickly. Please, again, pay attention to the conference app today. If there are any changes or updates, we'll push those out through the app. So if you have the CVent app, it's your handy little guide as you go through the morning. Also, just wanted to give a reminder to please silence your cell phones. It's easy to forget to do that. It occasionally happens to me too, so just for the benefit of everyone. And if you need to get up and leave the auditorium, we just appreciate you trying to leave quietly. So thank you so much. Before we set today's course, we do want to pause. Today is September 11th. And we remember the lives that were lost and forever changed in 2001 in the horrific terrorist attacks. So today we want to remember and honor the victims, the survivors, the first responders, and their families. So please help us honor the resilience that brings us together in rooms like this, that proves that even in the face of the deepest tragedies, we can be resilient and united, which is maybe more important than ever. So I'd like to invite you to join me briefly for a moment of silence as we remember those who were lost on September 11th due to the tragic events of that day. Thank you for holding that space. Well, we are here today to shape what comes next, looking forward. Day 1 reminded us that the future is already here. Day 2 is about what we choose to do with it, right? And who better to choose what our future is going to look like than all of us who are shaping the lives of so many of our students. We're going to look at how we align ethics, creativity, and sustainability so that our decisions today stand up tomorrow. 1 year ago on this stage, by the way, we announced the Digital Center for Innovation, Transformation, and Equity. You heard some of that from Chancellor Christian yesterday. And since then, together, we've gone from concept to outcomes, piloting, testing, and scaling tools that serve students and the colleges that serve them, all of you. This is the story, again, of how this community of colleges can come together and innovate. To hear a little bit more about the incredible work our founding partners are doing to benefit the entire system, I'd like to welcome to the stage the leaders of our founding partner districts. Please give them a round of applause.
And they're just covered wide, medium,
You may recognize some of these folks. If you don't, you'll get to hear about some of the work that they're doing. We're so excited to have you on stage. Thank you for being with us this morning. So we'll start here with someone who is not here in digital twin form today, but in real life. Chancellor Lambert from Chancellor Lambert from Foothill-De-Anza. Lee, last year we were talking about the launch of Lightleap and AI fraud detection and some other things we're working on. And that effort has actually reached over 80 of our colleges already. It's been really incredible to watch that progress. But I know you're already looking around the corner to see what's next. So could you talk a little bit about what you're seeing on perhaps how some other collaborations you could raise the floor on readiness and digital trust?
Oh, absolutely, Jory. Good morning, everybody. So how many seconds are there in a day? 86,000 seconds in a day. And so according to a University of Maryland study, I think I'm right to say it was University of Maryland. Every 39 seconds, there's a cyber attack. Now, according to some of the major corporations, that number is probably a little too conservative. So can you imagine, even if it was more than one attack every 39 seconds? How many unfilled cyber positions are there across the United States of America? A conservative estimate is around 500, 600,000. That's all up and down the cyber continuum. But now contrast that with nurses. How many nursing vacancies are there across the United States of America? Probably in the neighborhood of 200,000. What conversation aren't we having? Cyber reality. We're not talking about that in terms of how we as colleges are filling that. So in conversations with IBM, we need to bring forward the next level of cyber security education and training programs. I think that's going to be an important frontier because you can't talk AI, you can't talk these 4 superpowers that I talk about a lot without talking about cybersecurity. So I think that's an important piece we have to focus on as well as an entire system of colleges, because we've got to address the reality of this growing cyber problem across our country and across the globe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chancellor Lambert. Turning to President Jeannie Kim from Santiago Canyon College, representing Rancho Santiago as one of the founding districts. Again, you were also one of the earliest along the ride with Lightleap and working on the fraud problem. But I know you're also working on some other things too. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how you're revolutionizing your apprenticeship process.
So one of the pain points that we identified early on was that we weren't able to award the certificates and identify the actual successful completions of our students in the apprenticeship programs, because there were a lot of substitutions and a variety of different specialized areas. And so what we did was we engaged with Karen and with Lightleap and our counseling faculty, and we're fortunate to have an apprenticeship counselor dedicated to working with our apprentices. And so they've been developing a AI solution to be able to take all of the historical data, the current data, train the model so that that process of awarding these degrees and certificates is more automatic. We're not taking the human out of the loop. The humans will still continue to monitor and make sure that these awards and degrees are accurate, but we will no longer be behind because we don't have all of the resources or the historical knowledge. And so that's actually a revolutionary thing for us in terms of making sure that we're able to do a little bit better in relation to those auto-awarding degrees. Because previously, we were about 3 years behind, and that was actually impeding then the students in relation to their ability to complete or have evidence of completion.
I love the way you're centering students in that work and using AI to, again, revolutionize these processes. Chancellor Whitney Yamamura from the Coast District. Is anyone from Coast here, by the way? It's okay, we can be interactive this morning.
Go Coast.
There you go. So Coast has been, again, a leader in the field in the Common Cloud Data Platform, for example, demonstrating that turning the data plumbing work can actually help us increase our success with our students. Wanted to just give you a minute to talk about that work.
Oh, that's great. Yes, first tip of the cap to State Chancellor Christian. It was her idea to have a common data cloud that's agnostic of whatever ERP you use. So it doesn't matter if it's PeopleSoft or it's Banner or it's Colleague, whatever you use, being able to have a common reference so that it's easier for us to do research across the state and gather information, that's a big plus. On a practical basis for the colleges, again, in tribute to Vice Chancellor and our Chief Technology Officer, Rupert Saran, sitting there. In the initial project, the proof of concept was 6 colleges. Because they're so inefficient and effective, they added another 7. Imagine a project where you actually exceed your initial requirements. So, and we got funding for another round, so all of you districts out there, we're expanding our proof of concept because it's working. The practical reality for you state chancellors and presidents, superintendents, your CEOs, your your MIS reporting is that you get cleaner data faster and you save staff time. So it actually helps your bottom line. We think we're going to reduce the need for a staff by almost 1 full FTE. So that's in tight budget times, we should be easier. We should take advantage of technology to have cleaner, faster data.
Thank you so much. Turning to President Virginia Guliff from Butte College. Thank you for being here. And for those of you who don't know, Virginia is also kind of a ringleader up in the far north region. She's very good at convening a lot of our small rural colleges. So we're really thrilled to have you as part of the group. Butte is also home to the CCC Technology Center, which is our backbone for infrastructure for a lot of the work that our system does. So we're excited to ask you, how are you using AI supporting outreach to connect students with some of their needs?
Thank you so much, Jory, and I just want to qualify what ringleader means. I think that's important in
That
this
was
day and
positive,
age,
by
being
the
from the
way.
far north. I want to share with you something. You'll see that I have my analog notes for what we're saying today backed up by my phone. So this is the intersection of what we're trying to do when we want to reach our students. We know that they have their iPads and their tablets and their laptops, but they also have a bunch of paper that we've given them about our colleges. And so in the far north, we're piloting a program with a couple of other colleges. It's called the CaliBot program. And the idea is that we will connect with Mainstay, and we will make a commitment to provide real-time assistance to students. And Mainstay will do, this is where my notes come in, will establish escalation paths, which is important for us. When our students ping our college for information, we want to know when and how and where they're doing that. So Mainstay is going to help us track that. And then we're going to make connections with students to staffs. And we know that some of our students are happy to talk with a bot and a bot only, but also students want to connect with a person. And just finally, I'd like to say, one of the other ways that we can really help our students connect and we can help our campuses connect with this technology is to involve them in the development and the selection of the technology we'll use at our college. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It's exciting work. And by the way, all of these things we're talking about, these districts have committed to share with the rest of the system. That's part of the work we're doing through the Digital Center. So as you're hearing about their work, the idea is this can benefit all of us in the work we're doing for all of our students statewide. Dave Barnett, Vice Chancellor at Current CCD. Is anyone from Current here? No. Gary will kill me. So Dave, Current is doing some interesting work, actually something a little mobile. Would you like to share with us what you've got planned?
Yeah, sure. So we are implementing the Dreamscapes Learn mobile trailer. And we just had a call on Monday where we expect it to be delivered next month, so we're super excited about that milestone. And we're excited about bringing the immersive experience to our students and hopeful that that story creates an emotional connection and really helps students learn that material. And the mobile piece is important for us because we're a 25,000 square mile service area. And so rather than just having it in one location and making the students come to that location, we can bring this experience to the students. And so we're really excited about
That's
that.
worth clapping for. Thank you, Dave. Super excited to see how that progresses. Turning to Chancellor Juliana Barnes from South Orange. Thank you so much for being here. I know you're heavily involved, your faculty were doing a lot of work in testing the Canvas AI components, some of those before they came out. I know you have a deep bench centered on human-centered digital tools. What would you like to share this morning?
Well, first of all, I really want the rock star bus that Kern has, so work on that one. You know, one of the things that's top of mind for me is Community College 3.0 and what happens post-completion with our students, which is embedded into our new strategic plan. So quickly, because I know you said we have 1 or 2 minutes, quickly, I have a story with Gohar and I, where she pulled me in to go rogue yesterday. We were headed to a workshop that was going to bring together industry and education to be sure that, you know, students are getting the skills and experiences and certifications needed to go into the industry. So we said, what better way to do it than to crash the other big convention? So I'm putting it on Gohar. So we did. We went rogue, and we asked the employers, like, are we doing our job? You know, what do our students need? Where are the gaps? And they were like all over it. I tried to get in yesterday and the staff person at the door said, you can't come in. I was like, anyway, so Community College 3.0, really top of mind, what happens with students later. So going back to our pilot and some of the work that we're doing with Canvas, I know many of the colleges are doing that. I was having discussions with some of my team members, and I think one of the ways in which the Digital Center can help in partnership with the community college districts is, wouldn't it be lovely if we were able to use AI-powered tools combined with Canvas to really get that information so that students have some type of a portfolio immediately upon graduation that perhaps connected with LinkedIn, for example, so that students have some type of a portfolio ready so that when they're looking for employment post-completion that they have that, and so that we're assisting them with it. So that's one thing. And then quickly, the other thing, we're talking a lot about practices, but also top of mind is practitioners. And so obviously it's our practitioners who are driving this work. So I would love to see some type of a really intentional, coordinated effort to better understand digital literacy among our employees or faculty or classified professionals, and then to understand where the gaps are, and for there to be very intentional efforts with what I like to say, elevating hearts and minds with regard to professional learning and development. So, two thoughts.
Excellent. Yeah, there's so much great work happening. Chancellor Melissa Moreno from San Mateo County Community College District. You're doing a lot of work and leading with curriculum and instructional design and thinking about professional development. What would you like to share?
Thank you. Well, first of all, I am so excited to be here. I want to thank the Chancellor's office, Chancellor Christian, Rory, Don, the whole team, because I went away yesterday feeling super excited, and I'm like, why do I feel so excited? And because I love to be standing on the edge of innovation and change and the unknown, and I think that we're all here right now. And so I think we kind of just need to give it up to be able to have this conversation and for bringing this to us. So thank you for that. At San Mateo, any San Mateo folks there? Yeah. So what we're doing as a partner to the Digital Center and as a partner with our industry specialists is, you know, we want to leverage our instructional design expertise. So at each of our 3 campuses, Kenyatta College, College of San Mateo, and Skyline College, we have centers for teaching and learning, and we actually have a cadre of faculty who are instructional designers. And so we really want to leverage that, because my big thing is we have to create environments for our students to succeed, and it's faculty who create those environments. And so we really need to be on the leading edge of the unknown and of change to figure out what those classrooms environments look like so that our students are showing up with intrigue and curiosity. We have to be ahead of it. We have to be moving at the speed of innovation. And so we're focused on professional development modules for faculty and in the classrooms, and I just want to thank our faculty. We have champion faculty here, and we're part of the AI community of practice, and we have faculty that are really leaning into this work that we are excited to be able to share statewide and in partnership with the Digital Center. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we're excited that pace of innovation and the pace of professional development just keeps getting faster and faster, right? So definitely excited for that. And thank you so much. I also want to give a quick shout out to our newest founding partner, not here with us on the stage today, but El Camino College. Anyone from El Camino? All right, there we go. They're engaged with us and working on some policies around AI and IT, so we're looking forward to hearing more from them very soon. And again, to all of our partners, you've helped us prove what's possible this year when we can prototype together and scale together. This is the kind of collaboration on a grand scale that's going to benefit everyone, like I mentioned before. So thank you for dedicating your time and your resources to all of us doing that important work and for sharing that with the rest of the system. Now, since this is our first anniversary of the Digital Center, I thought it would be a great idea to mark it with a one-year birthday celebration. So, if our partners could please stand. no celebration would be complete unless we had what? Cake. Cake, right? So, oh wait, I'm being told that actually we have a virtual cake this year with the assistance of AI. So we won't sing, but we'll just say, to a year of doing the work, thank you. Thank you all for being here. Give another hand for our founding partners. All right, that was excellent. Today's main stage, we're going to press again on 3 through lines to the conversation. Ethical guardrails and equity by design, creative potential in human plus AI collaboration, and climate resilience and mental health, all that whole sphere through workforce readiness. So I hope you are ready for day 2 as much or more than day 1. We have a packed agenda. We're going to move briskly through that agenda, so be ready. We're going to kick it off together. You excited? Yeah. So as we get ready, I want to bring out a familiar face to many of you. We want to thank End-to-End Services for being one of our sponsors for the summit today, and here to share a little bit of information about what's happening with End-to-End and the Lightly product. I'd like to invite out the CEO of End-to-End Services, Kiran Koditala. Kiran?
Congratulations on the first year birthday. Speaking of birthdays, I just turned 50 last week, and now we also should all say, oh, you don't look 50, kid. I'll take a compliment and never get it. Well, but a lot has changed in addition to me getting older with Lightly. We all know Lightly as one monolithic thing that does a couple of things, or one of the things that we talked about. But over the last year, we've been rapidly innovating thanks to some of the incredible collaboration that's occurring between the California community colleges. And I want to highlight a few of them. And first one is with Polaris, our student services platform. We originally designed Polaris to allow a student to get whatever help they want as quickly as they can get. And that was kind of the genesis of our collaboration with Mission College under President Awan's leadership. President Awan reached out to us about a problem with Mission Cares. You all know it as College of Desert Cares or Coast Cares or whatever you are, like the basic needs, EOPS and others. She wanted to solve the problem of getting the students the help they need using AI. Let's hear from President Awan.
We have all of our students complete one application, and we triage those applications and those students to help them figure out what they qualify for. This process was very, very labor intensive, and it was taking up a lot of manpower, a lot of time auditing spreadsheets and trying to reconcile different systems. And so with reaching out to Lightly AI, they were able to help us really start to automate systems, analyze processes, and use AI and AI agents.
Well, technical glitch. Without technical glitch, there's no technical presentation, I guess. The second part is Prism. We originally started Prism as a document ingestion platform because IB Tech was dealing with hundreds of thousands of transcripts and documents from high school students, and they wanted a way to read transcripts at the speed of light so that they not only read the transcript but articulate them quickly. However, we never thought that this technology we created to massively increase online learning can help with offline learning until I met Clint Cowden. Clint Cowden, we met at a CSSO conference while he was eating lunch somewhere, and he presented us this unique problem of connecting AI with offline learning for his Rising Scholars program. Let's hear from Clint directly.
Previous to AI, what we were doing, especially for something like when we wanted to get a student accepted to our college, we would actually mail them a paper application. The student would receive that from their pesky or a local person at the institution that would provide them that. They would fill out that information. That would then get mailed to Palo Verde College. Really, truthfully, honestly, Palo Verde College is very happy to be using Lightleap AI. It has really helped our college. So Lightleap AI and Palo Verde College is really excited to continue to move forward.
So how does all this happen, right? How does the same company that is processing hundreds of gigabytes of data to identify fraud, is also doing document ingestion, is also doing student services connection? It's all because of our Atlas platform. Our Atlas platform is a data modeling system that can take data from any source and convert it to actionable intelligence, and that's one of the things that we are incredibly excited about. And all of this is useless if it is just a bunch of scripts and functions and dashboards. So we tied it all together with a conversational operating system called Ether, which is a chatbot operating system that connects any system, student information system, learning management system, AI agents, or any other systems. So Kern, Gary Moser from Kern came up with this interesting idea of what if we can connect advisors to student services needs so that students can get exactly the right courses as a result of guided pathways. So let's hear from Gary directly.
Many of our students have spent time going through and selecting courses that may not directly apply to the program or degree they're seeking. And we get concerned that the students are taking an awful long time in the community college and also taking extra courses that are not necessarily required. Take that information and bounce it against their record or program of study and find out where their gaps were, whether they took courses or not, whether they're missing courses. And then AI would calculate that information and recommend, using end-to-end as a partner, we think we can scale this very well, not only for banner schools, but for college schools, PeopleSoft. I don't think it's really going to matter because the capability that we have and the partnership that we built with end-to-end to be successful is going to lend itself to years.
I think I'm missing one other platform we all are familiar with, right? Our fraud elimination platform. How many of you here are using our fraud elimination platform? Right? So right now, that has been a success story in itself. When we started this just last year, speaking of first year birthday, I was here talking on Future Summit last year where we had 2 districts using the platform and we processed close to 300,000 applications. And now after about a year, we processed close to 3 million applications, and as a result, we caught close to 850,000 fraudulent actors. Big round of applause. In this, speaking of digital era of innovation or light leap innovation or light speed, in my lifetime of 27 years, that's how old I am, higher education terms, I've never seen anything go this fast, not even in general. So it's not just because of one thing. It's not just because we have an incredible team with end-to-end called Lightleap AI team, but we also have incredible collaboration with leaders like Jory, Dr. Lambert, Rupa from Coast, Gary, and Napa Valley, Cerritos, and every single one of you deciding to implement fraud detection to solve this systemic problem. And I'm happy to report that I feel that with the incredible collaboration we have, not just with Lightleap AI team and the Chancellor's office, but also with the Tech Center, I feel that the fraudsters are on retreat, at least from California. What we have seen is with San Bernardino, there's almost a 30% to 7% drop in fraud. And some institutions, believe it or not, was dealing with over 74% fraud. That means that 3 out of 4 applications were fraudulent, and we are able to report that the fraudsters are on the retreat. And again, it's only because of the incredible collaboration underway between each of the districts, each of the colleges, and the Chancellor's office, and most importantly, Tech Center as well. And I can go on and on about Orion, but we don't have that much time. I want to end with this slide because, speaking of birthdays, end-to-end has turned 15 this year. I started end-to-end on December 23rd, 2010, and we're celebrating our 15th year anniversary in Quantum Leap. And you can see the information on the URL. However, after talking so much to Dr. Kim, after listening to Chancellor Sonia Christian and Dr. Lambert talk about how important it is to be an internship-friendly state, which you are, I want to announce an incubator that we're launching only for community college students, where we will receive applications from community college students that want to build an AI product. And what we will do as part of this incubator is we'll set aside at least $100,000 in cash prizes, because to build on Chancellor Christian's vision on providing internship for everybody. But in addition, we'll give them CMO services, Chief Marketing Officer services, CTO services, Chief Financial Officer services, because anybody can have an idea. But it is so hard to think about how to take that idea and make it real. So check out Quantum Leap and check out the information. And thank you so much for your time. Incredibly appreciate all the support and help we're getting from all of you. Thank you so much.
Well, good morning, everyone. Yeah, it's me again, I know. He's back, right? Thank you. So we have a special lineup of speakers for you today, beginning with this morning's Fireside chat and our final keynote speaker, Hank Rogers of Tetris Acclaim and Principal Visionary and Philanthropist of the Blue Planet Alliance. As we gather here this morning, we're not just talking about the future. As Chancellor Christian mentioned, we're actively creating it. Vision 2030 is our roadmap for this journey, centering equity, climate action, and the transformative potential of artificial intelligence in all the work that we do. This isn't just policy on paper. It's our commitment to 2.1 million students who walk through our doors, trusting us to prepare them for a world that's changing at unprecedented speed. And while these imperatives require us to harness technological innovation, we must do so with unwavering commitment to justice. Our Board of Governors has given us a clear mandate to address these challenges on behalf of the citizens of California. As we stand at the crossroads of technological advancement, we must examine artificial intelligence through an intersectional lens that considers both its extraordinary potential and its profound risk. AI offers unprecedented opportunities to close equity and opportunity gaps. Yet we cannot ignore its potential for devastating socioeconomic impacts on local communities, women and the families they care for, and the global South. Particularly as the race for natural resources to fuel AI infrastructure accelerates climate change and further marginalizes vulnerable populations. California's community colleges have the unique power and responsibility to tackle the state's and nation's greatest challenges. And as the nation's largest higher education system, we are positioned to drive equitable solutions precisely because of the diversity of our students and our staff, who reflect the larger global community, giving us the insights that other institutions simply cannot match. So today, we have the honor of hearing from two pioneering women whose scholarship and leadership are reshaping how we understand technology, power, and justice in education. Their voices are essential as we work to build more equitable futures for our students and communities. Returning to Future Summit 2025, we're pleased to have Dr. Safia Noble, UCLA professor, director, hello? Safia? No, not yet, not yet. I know, no. I'll have you come out later. Okay. UCLA professor, director of UCLA's Center on Race and Digital Justice, co-founder of the Midro Initiative on Tech and Power at UCLA, and author of the groundbreaking book, Algorithms of Oppression, 2018, which exposed how search engines systematically misrepresented women of color and perpetuated systemic inequalities. Her work has become even more urgent as we grapple with large language models trained on public internet data that can amplify and scale these very biases. She'll be in conversation with author Karen Howe, one of the foremost tech journalists, covering AI with pieces in The Atlantic, a leader of the Pulitzer AI series, and whose recent and influential book, Empires of AI, The Dreams and Nightmares of Sam Altman's OpenAI, provides a comprehensive examination of how artificial intelligence shapes power structures, reinforces existing inequalities, and impacts social justice. Howe's analysis extends to AI's devastating climate impact, revealing how the technology's massive energy demands and resource extraction further entrench global inequalities. Now, as community college leaders, serving students who have historically been underrepresented in higher education and often marginalized by technological systems, we have a responsibility to embrace technological innovation, even as we interrogate the use and impact of these tools. It's our responsibility to provide the type of education and skill sets that will allow our learners to also interrogate those tools. This conversation between these two influential thinkers offers us critical perspectives on ensuring our technological choices advance equity rather than perpetuate harm. Their leadership reminds us that the voices guiding our digital future must reflect the diversity of the communities we serve. So with that, please give an enthusiastic welcome to my dear friend, Dr. Safia Noble and Karen Howe, for what will undoubtedly be an illuminating and necessary dialogue.
I send greetings from UCLA. You know that I always try to remind you that the very best students that I've ever had at UCLA come from the community colleges in California. I am absolutely trying to hold myself together because I am the #1 fangirl of Karen Howe. And I cannot believe that I get to be up here on this stage with you. I am the fangirl of Sophia. Don't even try it. Don't even try it. I brought a whole, just pages and pages, but really, I just want to do like this. Karen, you are, well, first of all, I don't know if everyone here realizes that the fact that we are even having conversations on this stage today in 2025 about the harms of technology on society is really because a group of women, scholars and journalists dating back to, I don't know, a long time ago, more than a decade and a half at least, started writing and studying and looking at the dark side of tech and Silicon Valley, where we sit today. And you were one of those people. So I just want to give you your flowers because I've been watching and reading your work since really for a long time. I feel like the longer I stay, the older we seem, so I'm trying to walk a fine line here. But you have been one of those voices in our world that has helped us understand in a very easy to digest, gut-punching way that what we think we know about technology and society isn't exactly the truth, and there's a lot more to see here. So we're going to get into talking about that with your book, Empire of AI, which I have to say, as a person who also had a title of a book like Algorithms of Oppression, I fully appreciated Empire of AI. I really saw what you did there.
It was, Dr. Noble's work is literally why I do so much of the work that I do. Like, her understanding her research and what she wrote about in Algorithms of Oppression, like, fundamentally changed my understanding of technology and how I should be directing my focus as a technology journalist. So in terms of talking about women scholars and intellectuals that really shaped this space, I mean, I literally could not do the work that I did without standing on your shoulders.
Well, that's very kind of you to say. So we're just going to but we're also going to get into your book. And before we do that, I wonder if you could help everybody who doesn't know your background to understand. I mean, I love the fact that you are a former engineer turned journalist. And I think that's really important for the audience to kind of get a sense of your background, because a lot of times they'll say about someone like me, well, you're a sociologist, you know, you're not an engineer, you don't fully understand. Even though I do have a PhD in information science, and I learned early that I hate to program, that doesn't mean that if you are not a programmer that you can't have something to say, but I really think it's important, this background in engineering. And so tell us about kind of how you got on this path.
Yeah, so I very much never thought that I would be a journalist. I went and studied mechanical engineering at MIT in undergrad, thinking that I would join the tech industry and that would be my career. And so I graduated college, I moved to San Francisco, I joined a startup in the Valley, and very quickly, I'd like to say, I received an education on what Silicon Valley is actually about, in that I discovered the model of innovation that was really being driven in this geography was producing profitable technologies, but not technologies that benefit society. And increasingly, because I joined the tech industry in 2015, increasingly we were starting to realize that not only were they not necessarily benefiting society, but in fact, in many ways harming society. This was right as Trump 1.0 was about to happen, Cambridge Analytica revelations were about to happen, and it really made me confront my initial assumption about what I could actually do working in the tech industry. I was really interested in environmental issues at the time, and I thought that maybe there would be a place for me developing climate technologies. And it dawned on me in that year that I was in tech that this is not the place where I get to work on these long-term challenging problems that are trying to grapple with the challenges that we face as a human race, because that is just, like, things like climate are just not profitable. Things like trying to overcome equity issues or social justice issues, that's not profitable. And so I had a little bit of a crisis moment where I didn't really know what to do with myself, and I sort of naively thought, well, I've always really liked writing, and I went into technology because I thought this would be my tool for social change. And maybe I just need to switch the tool from tech to writing, and writing for social change felt like
you know, I think about this latest work, Empire of AI, and you know, as you were talking about wanting to use the technology to solve so many problems, what we actually know and both write about is that the real profit is in exploiting the most vulnerable among us and the vulnerabilities of our humanity, whether it's our vulnerabilities to behavioral manipulation or to exploiting our racism or our sexism or kind of the class politics. Obviously, social media is playing a huge role in illuminating how profitable it can be to exploit human beings, not just in terms of like our behavior and how we speak to each other and how we move politically, but also the entire supply chain of exploitation that happens in order to make these technologies available. So I just want to get right into it. I mean, what are in the book, you cover this arc from kind of Sam Altman, the personality, which, quite frankly, he gets enough airtime, so we don't have to talk about him per se, but I do think he represents a type of propagandist for the tech industry and its promises while kind of obfuscating these other dimensions of exploitation. So what were the things that you felt like were most important you wanted people to understand as you were writing this book?
Part of the reason I started working on this book, so I've been covering AI since 2017, 2018, and I had been tracking OpenAI specifically as a company since 2019. And when ChatGPT came out and suddenly the world lit up talking about AI, I was honestly a little bit disappointed because I felt like the conversation there was like amnesia, everything reset, all of the work that people within our community of AI accountability have been doing for years at that point, talking about the challenges and harms of AI, had kind of been erased and rewritten to only have narratives that Silicon Valley was trying to install into the public understanding of this technology, that it's just going to be beneficial, it's just going to bring the future. And Altman was the embodiment of that. And he was like such a good prophet for the moment in that he seemed very different from Mark Zuckerberg. You know, he was coming onto stages in front of Congress, in front of conferences like this, being the kind of aw shucks guy. Like I didn't intentionally become the most powerful man in the world. Whoopsies. I didn't want this role, and this technology that I'm building is totally different from social media, and we're not gonna repeat those mistakes. We're like right side by side with you. We're gonna walk you gently into the future. And yeah, I was really frustrated because I was like, actually, Altman he's such a product of Silicon Valley, and AI is exactly like social media in that it's an extension of all of the ideologies that Silicon Valley has festered for a long time. AI, the way that Silicon Valley builds AI, could not exist without the surveillance capitalism that happened during the social media era, the accumulation of all of our personal data that was then used to train these AI models. It could not exist without the fact that we have sort of been lulled into this sense that technology we just have to lay down and accept it. Like we just have to, if we don't use these tools, then we're going to somehow get lost in this future and be ill-prepared. And so that's what I ultimately wanted to explore in the book, is to show that like this is the same thing. We've seen this story before. We've seen Altman as a character before. And even though OpenAI talks about it being a nonprofit, it's also nearing a $500 billion valuation. And we should recognize that this is not a beneficial, like mission-driven corporation that doesn't care about our pocketbooks and kind of just wants to bring everyone into a kumbaya circle. So I just wanted to tell that whole story, as well as then use it as a way to help people understand the history of AI as a technology as well, so that people could feel fully equipped to then develop a position on how they want to engage with this technology and how to make sure that ultimately AI serves them rather than them being served up to AI.
Yeah, I remember when the Google Book digitization project was underway, and all of the academic university librarians and all of the colleges and universities were like, this is going to transform education and knowledge. All knowledge will be open and free. This is like kind of straight out of the Google marketing campaign. And then midway through that, after they had digitized millions of volumes of books, then there was an about face because of people like you, people who were writing critically about that project. Siva Vaidyanathan wrote The Googleization of Everything and Why We Should Worry. People started saying like, well, wait a minute, what does it mean to put all the world's knowledge into the hands of private companies who then are going to do whatever they want? And of course, we were thinking back then, I was thinking, oh, this is to train AI models, right? And so, even though we were years away from Gemini, obviously, and librarians and educators had an about face because they realized, wait a minute, as we transfer public knowledge into these privately held systems, are we putting ourselves out of business? Are we devaluing the endeavor of human knowledge creation? Like, what are we doing here? And that project slowed down. And I wonder what your speculation is based on what you know. I mean, obviously we've just had this Anthropic lawsuit where authors have won on copyright infringement. You mentioned the normalization of the kind of surveillance state, or the normalization of just all of our data at all times being collected to train models, even to the extent of synthetic data now being generated to train models. Mm-hmm. What do you think is the position might be of educators about large language models, given what we know about what we learned from search?
Yeah, I think maybe the first way that I can answer that is just to lay out exactly what scale of data we're talking about in terms of what is required to train the types of AI models that these companies are developing. And I keep specifying like the type of AI that Silicon Valley is developing, because there's a whole landscape of different types of AI tools that all look very different, work very different, use different levels of data. But specifically when we talk about ChatGPT, Gemini, these large language model chatbot systems, I like to use the example of Meta because it was both a social media era company and now is trying to enter into the AI era. And as a social media era company, it accumulated 4 billion user accounts worth of data, right? And literally when Meta decided that they wanted to enter this current generative AI race, they realized that that 4 billion user accounts worth of data was not even table stakes for them to train AI models that would be competitive and beat out Google or OpenAI. And so the New York Times at the time reported that they were having internal conversations in Meta about whether they should buy up Simon & Schuster, whether they should keep scraping the entire web again and again and again, whether they should ultimately create more ways of engaging users so that users leave more and more trails of data for them to harvest. And it's really crazy to think about that, like, we're talking about a fundamentally different order of magnitude here of data that is required to actually sustain these systems and push the bounds of the capabilities of these systems. And so the thing that I worry about a lot is that these companies are running out of data. They talk all the time about how they've exhausted their data options and it is an existential crisis and they need to find ways of opening up new data streams. They have tried doing this through synthetic data by developing, by basically taking AI models, existing AI models, and trying to generate that data. But at the end of the day, research has consistently showed that this synthetic data is just not as fresh as human data. And so what they talk about, and I report in my book within OpenAI, for example, they talk about how they really need to cultivate as much trust with the public as possible so that the public will continue to give them data, because if they do not, that will be existential to their business. They talk about how they need to enter different industries and cultivate relationships with those industries so that they can get access to that data. And so what I worry about is these companies are coming to court, universities, colleges, the education sector, at a time when this sector is under constant threat. Yes. And they're presenting themselves as a solution to that threat, when in fact they are exploiting the vulnerability of this sector during the time when it is under attack, and using that to then create these partnerships that lock them into a new data stream.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I guess you get a feel for how we feel about what's happening right now. Just in case we're not clear, we're going to keep it going. So you're absolutely right. One of the things I think about, I'm a native Californian. I grew up in Fresno and the Bay Area, and I live in LA now. And I think of California, and especially this community here that we're with. This is the largest community college system in the country. Educates 25% of community college students in the entire United States. Millions of people. And so what your last comment really hits home, because I think about the ways in which we've had the most robust university system in the world in the community colleges, the California State University and the University of California here. We're right in the same state as Silicon Valley. And you would think that our schools in California, K through higher ed, would be the most well-resourced, the most spectacular, because of the valley. But instead, what we have is a suite of companies that don't pay taxes, that offshore their profits, that don't reinvest, and then come back, as you said, harvest our students, faculty, and staff. And it is absolutely, I mean, obviously, I'm no fun at a dinner party because this is what I want to talk about. You don't want to talk about this? But how can we use this time to help this community understand that these deals and deal makers, as they walk into our college campuses and into our schools, really are part of a project that is creating the conditions of our own demise by not supporting the system and then taking a peek right off the top.
Yeah, I mean, what you were saying about how these companies don't pay taxes and they've just gotten wealthier and wealthier and wealthier, and like public institutions in California feel like they've gotten weaker and weaker over time. I mean, that's just evidence number one of what the end game of these companies actually are. They don't actually have an interest in fortifying institutions, fortifying democracy, and making sure that they lift all boats, right? Like, that's why the inequality gap has just gotten higher and higher and higher. And you can just see within San Francisco specifically how the wealth inequality, the rampant homelessness, like, these are all manifestations of the way that the tech industry operates, and that should be your cue to questioning everything that they ever say to you, all the promises that they ever make, because at the end of the day, what I write about in my book is that, like, we can't even think of these companies anymore as just businesses that are providing products and services. We have to think of them now as new forms of empire, because when you take a step back and think about the degree of economic and political power they have consolidated, there is no nation state on this earth anymore that can hold them accountable. You could argue that maybe there was a time when the US federal government could play that role, but of course that is not going to happen anymore. The Trump administration has demonstrated that they have absolutely no interest in holding these companies accountable, and in fact have every interest of continuing to help them undermine public institutions, undermine universities, undermine democracy, and help them strike deals in places like the Middle East and other places so that they can install their infrastructure everywhere around the world in the Trump administration's project of trying to expand the American empire. And so that's like, what I always, like, I'm not an educator, so all of you are you are all experts in, you know, your work and what you're seeing are the challenges of your sector. But I am a journalist, and what I always say to journalists, and I do think that educators and journalists work hand in hand, like, media organizations are also facing this challenge of, like, do we partner with these companies? Do we give them all of our data, all of the work that we've put into writing articles and producing this well-reported documentation of history? And what I say to them is, you have to recognize that when you're trying to enter these partnerships to gain access, like gain a seat at the table, you are actually bargaining with an industry that does not fundamentally care if you exist in the future. They don't care if there are journalists in the future. They don't care if there are human educators in the future. I mean, they talk all the time about how ultimately one of the promises of AI is to replace human educators.
That's right.
Right? To give everyone an AI tutor. And so that is like, there's no ability to actually have a conversation with someone that does not care and even does not want you to exist.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say that, you know, the recent study that came out of, I think it was an MIT Tech Review, where some of your best work is as well, around the Fortune 500 companies rejecting chatbots now. Now they've had their run and they're like, actually, these are not helping us with our productivity. In fact, we've had to invest 30% more in our labor costs because there's so many mistakes that are coming out of large language models that are undermining our profitability that we're not sold. And you know, I always think like this isn't the first time when chatbots created for, I don't know, American Airlines, and then they're like, no, not working for us. But you know what? You could go sell it to UCLA. They definitely should take it. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's definitely good enough for them. So I think about this kind of these products and companies in search of markets, and I think that you really cover that so well.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that obviously I have a lot of beef with Silicon Valley. But one of them is, you know, when I was studying engineering, we always learned that you first figure out the challenge and scope it, and then you figure out what kind of technology do you build to tackle that challenge. Because at the end of the day, technology is meant to improve our lives. And in the last decade plus, for Silicon Valley, that ethos around engineering solutions to existing problems has gone out the window, and they advance technology for technology's sake. And then you run into an issue where you don't have product market fit, but they've already poured hundreds of billions, trillions of dollars into producing this technology. So now they have to seek that business. They have to figure out where they're going to get that revenue from. And the information just reported last week that OpenAI originally projected that they would roughly have a $35 billion cash burn, and they accidentally underprojected by $80 billion. So they now have updated their projections saying that they're going to have a $115 billion cash burn in the next 3 years. And that is, I mean, so they are $115 billion in the hole, and where do you think they're going to go find that money? Anywhere, anyone that will give them money, they are going to seek business with. And they're going to tell you, I mean, the other beef that I have is they are ultimately selling a vision of AI that I call the everything machine. They're coming to everyone saying, this AI, artificial general intelligence, AGI, is going to cure cancer, it's going to solve climate change, it's going to eradicate poverty, it's going to fix all of our educational problems. And throughout history, we have always seen time and time again that when someone gives you a potion that's going to fix all of your problems, they're probably charlatans. And this is what Silicon Valley is doing. And it's because they need that solution to be an everything machine so that they can fill that $150 billion hole.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we have to remember that they're not going to get the money out of us because we don't have any money. But we have the data, and our students have the data. And I think about this, you know, all the time. I remember when I was a long time ago when Turnitin became the big hot thing. And I remember my friends and I in grad school, we wouldn't use Turnitin. We wouldn't let any of our students use it, even though the university wanted us to do that, to check for plagiarism. We're like, what if we taught our students that cheating only hurt themselves? Do you know? Like, what if we actually approached it that way? And because, you know, the papers that a student writes when they're 18 or 25 or 40 to their instructor is, you know, it's personal, it's full of a lot of half-baked ideas sometimes, it's experimental, it's ideation. It's not probably a thing you want in a searchable database later on when they're going for a job that an employer can pull up and find and say like, oh, what were you thinking when you were 18 and now we're going to use that against you? Or how do we build a data profile about you based on all your past research papers, right? I mean, there's like a lot of practical, ethical reasons why we would not want to put students' ideas or faculty's intellectual property or all of, staff decisions into these systems only to have them used as a type of predictive analytic about people for the future. And I know you have a lot of thoughts about what that means. I mean, our field, we write about the harms of predictive analytics, constantly predicting the past into the future. I really want to hear your take on that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the entire premise of AI, is you are training on data that existed and then using that to predict the potentials of people, what they are allowed to be in the future. And of course, if you're only looking at past data, then you're constraining the possibilities of the future to look exactly like the past, if not a worse version of the past. We've now seen an abundance of research to show that when training AI models on historical data, that it actually exacerbates the fault lines in that historical data and projects it and amplifies it in the future. And I mean, that's sort of antithetical to the entire project of education, isn't it? Like, we engage in education so that we can have a fundamentally different future than the mistakes that we made in the past. And so, absolutely, I think that our willingness to believe that somehow a technology that works in this way will fortify that project of education is, it's really concerning, because it ultimately, that is not what these tools are about, especially the way that Silicon Valley designs them.
Yeah, I think about, you said, tell my students, the reason why 3 shirts for $20 at the Gap feels so good, like such a great deal, is because it costs $100,000 to get a degree. Like the instinct for like the wanting the easy thing that looks amazing without any understanding of the cost that goes into 3 shirts for $20, 3 sweaters for $20, sits in the context of what we're losing, of what it feels further and further out of reach in our democracy. And I love the part, and by loved I mean I wept, the part of your book where you talk about who pays the price in the global south. And I think that, for Americans, sometimes it's really hard to understand because they've never been to Paraguay, they've never been to Chile, they don't really understand. But I think it's important for us to talk about the Kenyan data workers and the water and environmental costs.
Yeah, so part of my book, I wanted to tell the inside story of OpenAI, but I really did not want to just stay within the valley, because if you tell the story of AI or any technology by only staying in one place where it actually works, you are not going to get a clear picture of the actual fallout that can happen globally, especially for marginalized and vulnerable populations. So I traveled a lot for the book. I went to Kenya, I drew upon reporting from South Africa, I went to Chile, Uruguay, Colombia, to really understand how these communities at the margins are actually experiencing this technology revolution that's supposed to bring us into the future. And so in Kenya, I met with workers who had been contracted by OpenAI to support the development of what ultimately became ChatGPT. And what OpenAI was asking these workers to do was help them build a content moderation filter that would sort of staple onto the models that they were developing, the large language models, and ensure that when users actually talk with this text generation system that can generate anything, that it doesn't end up generating racist, toxic hate speech, because then it would not be a commercial success. And so for the Kenyan workers, what that meant was they had to wade through reams and reams of the worst content on the internet, as well as AI-generated content where OpenAI was prompting its own AI models to imagine the worst possible content you could find on the internet. And then they had to label and put these pieces of text into a detailed taxonomy that OpenAI provided them. Is this hate speech? Is this violent speech? Is this sexual content is this sexual content that involves abuse and abuse of children. So they were asking them to do these detailed evaluations of how bad is this content and what kind of badness is it, so that when they trained this content moderation filter, that filter would then be able to distinguish between these things and block it out of ChatGPT. These workers ended up having the same exact psychological impacts that content moderators of the social media era had. They ended up deeply traumatized. They ended up with completely altered personalities. Many of them were extroverted and warm and social before they started the project, and then after became extremely socially anxious, very isolated. And I talk about this one man, Mo Fawakinye, who was part of this group of Kenyan workers that was on the sexual content team for OpenAI. And as his personality did a complete 180, he didn't know how to explain this to his wife and to his stepdaughter, because he didn't know how to tell them, my job involves reading sex content all day. That didn't sound like a real job. ChatGPT hadn't come out yet, so there was like not even a conception of like, why would you be doing that? That sounds very shameful. And so as his wife became more and more confused, she also became less and less certain about their marriage. And so one day she asks him, can we get fish for dinner? He goes out to the store, buys 3 fish, one for him, one for her, one for the stepdaughter. And by the time he comes back, all of their bags have been packed and they've left. And his wife texts him and says, I don't know the man you've become anymore. We're not coming back.
Yeah. I remember Sarah Roberts' book, Behind the Screen, about content moderation, commercial content moderation workers. So many thousands and thousands of stories of people whose lives, whose physical bodies had completely deteriorated from the weight of this kind of work. And this is part of the hidden dimension of what it means to also participate in these systems and to use these systems, certainly. And I think of the, the water protectors also. And, this isn't just in South America where people are fighting off large data centers, but also Memphis and Austin and places right here in our own, and of course we're in California, a place that is so environmentally fragile.
Yeah.
I think it's important that we at least kind of name, and by we I mean you, name, tell us about the environmental costs.
Yeah, so in order for Silicon Valley's type of scale it at all costs AI development to perpetuate, McKinsey came out with a report recently that projected that they have to build massive data centers and massive supercomputers to train the models on all of the data that they're harvesting from people, and then to actually host the model so that when you're chatting with ChatGPT, the model has to exist somewhere in like a physical space. And the rate at which they are building these data centers and supercomputers is historic. It's unprecedented. And McKinsey's report said that in the next 5 years, if we keep up the current pace and actually build out what these companies are saying they will build by 2030, we would need 2 to 6 times the amount of energy consumed in California to be added to the global grid. And most of that will come from fossil fuels because these data centers and supercomputers have to run 24/7. And Business Insider came out with this investigation where they found that utilities across the US are, quote, torpedoing their renewable energy goals in order to sustain the amount of energy that needs to be generated for these data centers. And I want to make clear once again, the scale that we're talking about is completely different than previous internet era companies. So during the social media era, it also needed data centers, but the rate at which data centers were being built was roughly equal to the rate at which energy efficiency improvements were being made on these data centers. So in the last decade, the US energy demand has flatlined. And in the EU, the energy demand was going down, even as there were more data centers being built. We are now at a point where the data centers are being built so quickly that we are seeing a historic uptick in energy demand around the world and in the US. And so we are literally single-handedly reversing the climate progress that we made in the last decade because of this technology. And on top of that, you then have to deal with things like public health crises. It's exacerbating the air pollution that is going primarily into working class communities. There's been phenomenal reporting on Grok, Elon Musk's company that is training on a supercomputer in Memphis, Tennessee, predominantly black and brown working class communities that are now being pummeled by the air pollution coming out of 35 unlicensed methane gas turbines that are powering this supercomputer. And they're now fighting tooth and nail because they never even had an opportunity to say, we don't want this supercomputer. It just arrived one day. And then they started, like, people who had chronic asthma, because this is a community that's already suffered an inability to access their right to clean air for a long time. They started coughing and smelling gas and being like, what is going on? And then suddenly discovered this giant hulking silicon apparatus that had landed in their midst. And now they're like going to city council fighting with their government, being like, why did you not even ask us about this? And city government is now over their heads because they didn't realize that the supercomputer would come with these 35 unlicensed gas turbines, and they didn't know that Elon Musk would just, well, that Elon Musk would just buck environmental regulation, just totally ignore it to set this up. Then there's the public water crisis that comes with building these data centers. So one thing people don't often know is that these data centers are most often cooled with water. You can cool them with energy by running giant AC units, basically, in these facilities, but that is way more energy intensive, and so the best way to do it is cool it with water. But if it's cooled with water, it has to be fresh water. It cannot be any other type of water because that would lead to the corrosion of the equipment or bacterial growth. And so Bloomberg had an investigation that found that 2/3 of the data centers being built to support the AI industry now are going into communities that do not have enough fresh water for the human population there. That includes California, that includes Arizona, where the southwestern United States has faced a historic drought, the worst drought in 1,000 years, while it has also become the second largest data center hub in the US, potentially the world. And if you go further afield, I went to Uruguay to meet with a community there that was also fighting data center development there, and they were facing a historic drought that was so bad that the Montevideo government started mixing salt water into the public drinking water supply because there was not enough water to service people's taps. And for people who could not pay for bottled water, that is the water they were drinking. And women were having higher rates of miscarriages, people with chronic illnesses were having inflamed symptoms, and it was in the middle of that, when these people were already fighting for access to life-sustaining resources, that Google was like, we want your life-sustaining resources to cool our data center.
Karen, I think about your work and your voice as a light in complete darkness. Like, just what, we're sitting here in the heart of Silicon Valley, and the weight, I can just feel the weight of the AI hype cycle that is around us. It was on the escalator, if you saw that coming up, it was like some escalators taking you to AI heaven. I don't know what the ad said. It felt like it said something like that. And yet, you know, I know we're talking about large language models for the most part. Our friend and colleague, Dr. Tamik Jabru, and her incredible organization, DARE, has been, and I know you've been looking at other kinds of AI, and you close the book on a hopeful note, and I'm going to attempt to close this session on a hopeful note. I'm not guaranteeing that that will be the outcome, but you've got all day to recover. You know, this idea of kind of like small task-based AI. How could we think about AI? AI, you know, is a big catch-all for a lot of things, but is there some promise, and how do we disambiguate it from the things you've talked about that we know we don't want?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier that there are full range of different types of AI technologies. And I think really the best way to think about the word AI is like the word transportation. There's a whole lot of different transportation options. You can have bicycles, rockets, self-driving cars, gas-guzzling trucks. And generally speaking, we don't say we just need more transportation to solve our problems, right? We understand that we need to electrify our transportation, we need to ride more bikes than fly more rockets. And really, I really do think that the AI models that are being produced by Silicon Valley are kind of like the rocket equivalent in transportation, where generally speaking, there's actually a very narrow range of transportation needs where we actually need the rocket, and it would make utterly no sense for us to give everyone a rocket to use for everything, and suddenly you're commuting from LA to Santa Clara on a rocket. That's just not fit for purpose. And I hope that we can move the conversation in AI to start disentangling the nuances there as well. But the thing that I write about in my epilogue for the book is about this story of this community in New Zealand called Tahiti Media. It's one of the best stories that I've ever reported. They're a Maori radio station that really wanted to contribute to the revitalization of the Te Reo Maori language, because like many indigenous peoples around the world, Maori have almost lost their language from racist assimilation policies during colonization. And Tahiti Media has been broadcasting in the Te Reo Maori language for decades as one of the only organizations that has that really long, continuous history. And so they thought, we want to bring this archival audio to Te Reo Maori learners so that they can hear the sounds of their ancestors and actually reclaim their own language. And so the problem was, in order to do that, they wanted to create this interactive education tool where they could transcribe the audio so people could listen to the audio while they saw the words coming up on the screen, and then they could click on the words and see the meaning, the translation, see how it's used in other contexts, so that they can really learn this language. But there weren't enough Te Reo Maori speakers with sufficient fluency to actually do that transcription. And so they thought, we want to use AI. But they went about developing their AI tool in a fundamentally different way. First and foremost, they went to their community and asked, do you want AI? The community said yes, and then with their consent, they then taught the community, this is how AI usually works. We're going to need your data. We're going to need donations from you of audio with transcription so that we can train this speech recognition tool that knows how to transcribe Te Reo Maori. And the community was really excited because they knew that it could actually benefit them and not exacerbate historical inequities, but actually reverse and give them back power. And so they were more than happy to give their data. And because there was so much buy-in and so much trust, within 3 days, they were able to gather enough data to train a model. And because this was a small, task-specific AI system, not an everything machine, it was just doing one task really, really well, they got away with just training on a couple hundred hours of audio, and they were able to get to a high enough proficiency that they could start transcribing their archive. And then they went back to the community and said, now that we have this tool, how do you want us to use it? What kind of educational tools do you want? And what other AI tools do you want us to build with it? And another part was they promised the community, now that we have your data, we're going to be guardians of that data. We're not going to sell that data. We're not going to try to monetize that data. We are going to create a legally binding license so that if anyone ever wants access to this data, they have to sign off on our community's values to make sure that this data is never used in a project that might ultimately come back to harm us. And finally, my favorite part about this entire endeavor was they used this as an opportunity to also train the next generation of Maori data scientists and AI developers. Because they thought, if we want to continue having AI for our community built by us, we need to train up the next generation to continue knowing how to develop these tools and knowing how to protect our data with Maori values. And so, I mean, when you think about that's what AI could be, like why aren't we all doing that? And that's my vision for what AI, like how AI could really be truly democratic, where it can really empower people, it can really reverse all of the historical inequities and allow us to build fundamentally a new, sustainable, and equitable future. I hope everyone here will read Empire of AI. Don't read it at night, kick it off in the morning, coffee, just saying. No, read it, listen to it. On Audible, it's actually amazing listening to you narrate your book. It's so powerful. You are, I think, the most important voice we need to be listening to right now about LLMs and ChatGPT and all of the attendant problems, but also the possibilities and the solutions. So I'm so grateful to have had this time with you. Let's give parents
Wow. Are you energized? I couldn't tell. No, somebody says no. All right, well, thank you so much. We've had a great morning together. We want to let you know that there is now a 30-minute break that'll take place down in the Futures Hub. Sessions will start back up at 11 a.m. And please join us back here at 2:30. Don't worry about traffic or anything, just come back here at 2:30. We have a fantastic afternoon scheduled for you as well, so please enjoy your break. Thank you.
I'm going to split.